Welcome to the post game. Michael Brooks here with the team and Harvey J.K., returning champion. How you doing, Professor K?
I'm always a happy guy when I'm with you, and I'm only sorry I have to talk to Ben long distance.
Still long distance. Well, one day, I'm sure you'll meet Ben Burgis. Ben Burgis is, of course, our resident logic guy, coming to bring us some logic. We discovered that he's an Aries, so it makes sense. I had wondered why he was so into all of that shit, but I read his chart.
So he's an Aries
and
I'm the Libran, and
yeah, you're a Libra. He's an Aries, and every time this triggers people, I'm only going to talk about it more. That I can promise you. That you can bank.
So, what Ben Burgis tries to do is pretend that his feelings that he gets from the estrogen in the environment are actually logic, instead of just a sensitive desire to be a fucking pussy. That's what I call logic for the left. Hey, Ben, can we do an actual reasoning process together? Oh, the poor people, I don't want them to work. I feel so sad. Let me find a Bertrand Russell quote. By the way, Bertrand Russell, also a pussy. He's your hero. He's a freaking vegetarian who couldn't hold a job.
Is that his hero? Is that his hero?
Yes, that is his hero.
Yeah, this is...
we come out of two different traditions, I can tell.
Wow.
Yeah. No,
wow, fight amongst the cocks. Two different traditions of caring about lazy, shiftless people and peace.
Piece of shit.
I support the wheelchair guy. No, I support the vegetarian guy.
You're talking to two sides of Ben now, I think.
Yeah, no. So we have to. Speaking of which, actually, I forgot to send. Speaking of fascist machismo, I will send to you guys, or maybe Vic could. Vic, if you're listening, you could tweet at them. This incredible footage of Bolsonaro encouraging a bunch of people around him to drop to the ground and do push-ups, and then he can't. There has to be a really powerful metaphor in there, and obviously we have to do that on the show.
Fucking Bolsonaro's fighting the cultural Marxists.
All right, hello Ben, how are you? That was a right-wing Mandela
I'm
interlude.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm actually... right-wing Mandela feels like an appropriate warm-up since I'm going on the Jesse Lee Peterson show tomorrow morning.
What the fuck? I thought I was... Wait a second. Wait. We have two pieces of business to deal with. First, we got to play your song, and then I got an invite to go on Jesse Lee Peterson's show. Apparently, Griscom has too. What the hell's going on? This guy's just trying.
Yeah,
Reverend Jesse Lee Peterson.
Know.
Well, I'll tell you who he is.
He's a man of God and not a pussy.
That's literally. I mean, I don't know. You're gonna have to Google him.
Like a good warm up for what I assume that experience will be like.
So, what do you think of?
Link.
What do you think of Donald Trump, the Great White Hope? So you don't think that Omarosa betrayed Donald Trump? No. You know, there was a lot of freedom in Zanzibar when the apartheid regime still existed.
I think he said she wasn't his kind of woman.
Oh, God. All right. Let's play Ben's song. I can't believe you're going on Jesse Lee Peterson's show. I want to go to Mockery really bad.
I will.
So please go.
Okay.
You got to restrain me.
Okay.
Logical analysis. You're going to show us how to argue that. Go.
This is based on data from a bunch of different countries. There's abundant evidence that at this point that's bullshit. Breaking down these right-wing arguments and looking at how they're supposed to fit together.
Okay, break it down. Break it down. Break it down.
I do like that.
No, that's brilliant. Who did that again? Ben? I don't have the. I'm actually no. Ed, where's your info? I'm sorry. I'll get that later. All right, Ben Burgis, the Debunk. What do we have? You better mind your P's and Q's. You're about.
That was Ed Keenan.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So since in the same spirit as going on the Peterson show, although it's my goal for that not to be invited back, So I went on this libertarian podcast, Part of the Problem, and did a debate with Gene Epstein, who's a older guy. He's a Austrian economist, libertarian, and the debate covered a lot of other ground. But the part that we're going to be listening to is about an argument that you hear versions of very often, that has a long lineage on the right, which is that socialism, trying to democratize the economy, would actually have bad effects on freedom for unpopular minorities. And this is something I think that I see a lot in the Wall Street Journal and stuff now, every kind of conservative or libertarian writer who thinks that they can sort of seize on this contradiction that oh, wait a second, you want things to be democratically controlled? Well, you know who is democratically elected? Trump, right? So we know how much you hate him. So this is going to be kind of a contradiction in your worldview. So this is the
by your logic.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. So this is going to be the argument that Gene Epstein is pushing at the beginning of the clip from our. It's going to be two exchanges back and forth of me and him in the debate.
As far as human liberty go. Connor Friedersdorf asked in The Atlantic about democratic socialism, quote, how many Muslim prayer rugs would the Democratic majority of workers vote to produce? How many Qurans? What share of construction materials would a majority of workers apportion to new mosques? Bhaskar has written, and I assume you agree, that he wants socialism to, quote, involve a commitment to a free civil society, especially for oppositional voices. But now imagine an oppositional voice like mine that wants the democratically elected planners to commit resources to put on public debates, catering libertarians who support capitalism for my sole forum.
This is a a priori concern that really.
Should we pause it or play you out, Ben?
Yeah, let's just play the whole thing and then talk about it.
I like that. Ben's just I think we can play this out. Check this out.
This is a a priori concern that really ignores how public institutions tend to work in the real world. If we lived in a society where there were no laws about what buildings you could put here, you could raise structurally identical worries about democratically empowering cities to pass zoning laws and institute zoning boards. And fair enough, sometimes cities do try to use those things to stop the construction of mosques, etc. However, overall, we live in a society with both democratic zoning and lots of mosques, lots of vegan restaurants, etc. Also, it's worth noting that in the society that we actually live in the real world, the only thing that brought down the whites-only signs from privately owned restaurants around, vast swathes of this country was a heavy dose of statist coercion via the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So I think that the track record of democratic statism is pretty good here, and I'd need a much better reason to think that public institutions in a hypothetical future, socialist future, would have this problem that seems to be notably absent from the public institutions of the present.
With respect to the idea of human liberty, you seem to agree that a necessary component of human liberty is the right to build mosques and get access to financing to do so. You seem to agree that a necessary aspect of human liberty is the right to publish books, to own printing presses, to acquire the funds to do so, to run the Soul Forum, to run part of the problem. I will tell you a brief story. During the Vietnam War, as you probably know, the government was pretty aggressively trying to harass types like Noam Chomsky or others, or Howard Zinn, others who were writing books about the Vietnam War. But if there were, at that time, a democratic socialist society, with most people, by the way, most of the time supporting that war until it began to really fail toward the waning years, do you really think that Chomsky would be published other than as a sort of underground samostat, a la the Soviet Union? Yep. Do you really? Well, excuse me, you really do. Well, then I can only say that you are expressing unfortunate naivete about the power and abuses of government.
notice too some other levers of power that you might think that they would have had. So one thing that Chomsky, maybe some people might think it's hypocritical. I think he just thinks it's kind of funny. But one thing to notice about Chomsky is they spent most of his career teaching at MIT, where, as he often says, he's essentially financed by the Pentagon. Because MIT gets so much of their money from Defense Department contracts. So, man, wouldn't that be, I don't know exactly when he started the job, but if it wasn't during the Vietnam era, although I think he already had his linguistics job at MIT during the Vietnam era, but certainly in the 80s when he was making a lot of trouble about Reagan's covert wars and, in Central America, man, why didn't the state just use that direct lever of power, say, hey, MIT, no more defense contracts until you fire this Chomsky guy? Well, they didn't, for the same reason that they couldn't stop private publishers, which is that there are constitutional barriers to doing this. And this is the same reason why in the era that you're talking about, the Vietnam era, then Governor of California, Ronald Reagan, tried to fire Angela Davis for being a member of the same political party as your mother. And he was unsuccessful in doing so, even though she worked, in fact, not even though.
Well done, Ben. The subtle mama joke.
Ben, I got to ask you.
I do like the non-cock material there, by the way. Very hard to not go ad hominem on your spotting partner.
That guy could make me a Maoist in 5 minutes.
So wait, Ben, you were in the same room with him.
Yeah.
Because I see the brick there. And
this is how stimulated you are by this guy's conversation. You can see the same brick. Let's keep going.
I was looking for historical evidence of where he was.
Was unsuccessful in doing so, even though she worked, in fact, not even though, but because she worked for the University of California, a public university system, because as an employee of the University of California, she is a public employee, and public employees enjoy constitutional protections against being fired for their political opinions that private employees generally do not. Employees of private companies are fired for expressing political opinion all the time.
Well, wow. Well, I like that. So wait, just can I just go ad hom for a second?
Yeah, go
is
for
this
it.
guy you were making? Is this guy's mom? Was this guy a red diaper baby? Is he one of these like?
He was. That's part of his.
Oh
origin
well,
story.
that's okay. Well, we already know what the deal is. There and this is where communists need to take responsibility. There was a handful of total freaks who were particularly raised in usually the Bay Area. The families obviously had a huge amount of psychological issues, and they were really unpleasant to their kids. And then the kids were like, Daddy didn't play catch with me and forced me to look at horrible avant-garde art because of Stalin. And now I'm going to be some libertarian asshole and try to take food out of children's mouths and have exhausting pedant arguments about Noam Chomsky. I think we know what the story is here. If anything, I feel compassion for the guy. Psych.
Well,
okay, Ben.
So there you go, Ben.
Yeah, all right, Ben. Go do your logic thing. But I think I just summarized everything at 30. Can you see how much more efficient that is?
I think he just dumped on you.
I dunked on the other guy. I didn't dunk. Look, no, Ben's doing his best.
Ben, you were great.
Ben was great. But I'm just talking about the clear. I mean, Jesus Christ, this is a world that David Horowitz lives in. Ben, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say the psychological effects of being raised by old-time communists, notwithstanding, that it's also worth pointing out that I think there's a cumulative case that you could make here for socialist politics based on exactly the considerations that Gene Epstein is trying to use as a reason to oppose them in the video. That if you care about freedom, not just on paper, but the freedom in practice of people to engage in dissent and all that stuff, then of course, if you compare the amount of freedom that public and private employees have, that's part of that case. But another part of the case is what you were talking about earlier with Michael about the four freedoms and all that stuff. That if Because one of the reasons, that freedom from want is important, besides just, the sort of basic human level that it's important, is that it's not unrelated to freedom of speech and all these other freedoms. That
Right.
if you're worried that if you lose your job because you piss off your boss, that means that you and your family will be destitute, you're a lot more likely to keep your head down and not cause trouble and not, express controversial opinions than if you're liberated from that fear.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, in the Second Bill of Rights speech, FDR says, necessitous men are not free men. And I liked, especially in Bernie's speech, when he went on, if so-and-so, are you free? And he had about at least a dozen examples. And I thought that was really, really effective. It was a shame that, in fact, it wasn't broadcast on the main networks, or at least even by any of the cable ones.
Well, let me give you a counterpoint. What if your dad has a goddamn malposter in the living room and he won't let you watch the Sunday morning cartoons? Would that make you question your utopian project, Ben?
If you answer that.
Wait, come on, I'm getting into this.
No, fair enough. I feel refuted.
What if your mother doesn't shave her armpits and everyone else can see it, and she's into reading Sartre and his goddamn girlfriend, and you can't play games with the other ones with your friends? How do you like communism now, Ben? Maybe you'd want to start a podcast network with warmed over 90s jokes and freak out about the Clean Air Act. Do you see?
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm telling you, it's a type. I mean,
That's why
David
I thought he was
Horowitz.
dumping on you, because he literally was making this Gene Epstein, is that his name?
Gene Epstein.
Gene Epstein.
Gene
He was making
Epstein.
Gene
It's totally
somebody
not an
that we should feel
impression.
really bad for.
Well, I mean, I guess, or someone that we could just be laughing at, enjoying ourselves. But I mean, David Horowitz, I think it was. One of the, all kidding aside, I mean, really one of the most, I mean, a prototype of the kind of authoritarianism we're talking about. And his parents were Stalinists, and he had he had all of this trauma. And then, he went on a crusade. I mean, I remember he came to Bates College in 2006 to try to pass basically something that would force professors to not teach critical thinking skills, essentially. I mean, it was this, horrible guy who rose in the 80s as an informant on communism, supposedly. And it clearly, if you read about him, it was just like
Marxist in the
this guy is
60s, wrote some really interesting stuff in the 60s.
Right.
It was pretty much.
Yeah.
He was an
went through
apprentice
the-
to
like,
Isaac
he was
Deutscher.
the new left. He was the editor of Ramparts, right?
Yes, right.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's a lot of trauma with some of these people. So what you should have done, and maybe you could have if you weren't such a fucking Aries, is just give Epstein a hug and say, "Listen, dude,
Don't worry.
just because children are going to be able to be fed, and we're not going to live in an authoritarian feudalist future, and just because some of the books you like are actually juvenile and silly, it's okay. You can still do your podcast. Relax."
So where did you do this with him? I'm sorry if I'm distracting. Where's this?
What's that?
Where were you when you did this? Where's this guy out of?
Well, so we did it on his friend Dave Smith's podcast, Part of the Problem, which is the studios in Manhattan.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
What if then you say that we should have health care, but then your dad tells you that the World Series is capitalist propaganda?
I'm sorry. All right,
Yeah,
Ben
really,
Burgis, as a pleasure as
Gene
always.
Epstein's parents sound like assholes.
They do. That's what I'm saying. I have a lot of look. I'm a socialist. I always blame the outside first. That's my motto. It's so hard, man. It's like I listen to that kind of stuff, and just even that thought process. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? You're a grown adult doing this in,
No,
in 2019. Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so totally divorced from any recognizable reality we're dealing with. It's stunning. And even the closest to the most sort of extravagant paranoia that these people have is implemented in a place like China, which is not a communist country. But anyways, Ben Burgis, Logic for the Left. Give them an argument. Logic for the Left. Also check them out on Patreon. And we're going to be doing something soon. I believe we're doing a Sopranos conversation, I believe, for your patrons soon, Ben.
Yes.
Well,
That's right. Yep.
Are you out in Jersey?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got to do it while you're still in Jersey, not down in...
Harvey is very locational. Well, we can always do it over the phone.
Yeah. That's true.
Do it over the phone.
Yeah.
It's all right.
I have location.
Yeah.
You're right.
You're extremely locational.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can tell who you are, like, based on that.
Ben Burgis, thanks a million,
This is
brother.
interesting.
Thank you.
Harvey might have an alternative to astrology based on geography.
But your geography is affected by your astrology. It's inescapable.
Oh, now he's getting scientific about it.
Jesus Christ.
See, he's at...
It's material
He's
analysis.
revealing himself even as we speak to
It's
him.
material analysis. The planet that's not material. Jesus, you guys are delusional.
Yeah.
Think about it.
He's got control of the
I
mics.
love pissing people off with this. All right, Ben. Take care, brother. All right, appreciate it. You've just watched a Michael Brooks show video, and you can watch all of our full main live shows every Tuesday night at around 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and subscribe to get all of the clips you want. We're covering the globe. We're focusing on international relations, the intellectual dark web. We're having fun. We're doing deep dives with a lot of amazing guests. Of course, become a patron for the whole thing at patreon.com/TMBS, or subscribe to this YouTube channel and help us keep growing and get that content out there. Subscribe below.